Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Music for a Book podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Britt.
And I'm Hannah.
And every 2 weeks, we read and review a book, assign a song to that book, draw the parallels between the two, and have some fun along the way. So welcome back to Season 2, Episode 8 of the Music for a Book podcast.
So excited for this one.
I know, this was a fun one. We were really looking forward to this. So this week, we have chosen a book that we were both so excited for. It is actually another repeat and has become kind of an auto-by-author for us. We're reviewing Funny Story by Emily Henry.
So how this episode is going to work, we're going to go over trigger warnings and a brief synopsis of the book. Then we will reveal our song choices. After our song choices, we'll move into what we like to call spoiler territory. So after that point, we will be discussing anything and everything that happens cover to cover in the book. So that'll be your time to back out if you haven't read and you want to come back later. Dear reader. All right, so some trigger warnings. Remember, always check your own triggers. These are from Storygraph: abandonment, sexual content, emotional abuse, toxic relationships, infidelity, alcohol, and minor drug use.
And then a brief synopsis for the book. This was kind of pieced together from a few different places, like Goodreads, Storygraph, things like that. So Daphne always loved the way her fiance Peter told their story, how they met, fell in love, and moved back to his lakeside hometown to begin their life together. He really was good at telling it, right up until the moment he realized he was actually in love with his childhood best friend, which is how Daphne begins her new story, stranded in beautiful Wading Bay, Michigan, without friends or family, but with a dream job as a children's librarian that barely pays the bills, and proposing to be roommates with the only person who could possibly understand her predicament, Petra's ex, Miles Nowak. Scruffy and chaotic, with a penchant for taking solace in the sounds of heartbreak love ballads, Miles is exactly the opposite of practical, buttoned-up Daphne. The roommates mainly avoid one another until one day, while drowning in their sorrows, they form a tenuous friendship and a plan. If said plan also involves posting deliberately misleading photos of their summer adventures together, well, who could blame them? But it's all just for show, of course, because there's no way Daphne would actually start her new chapter by falling in love with her ex-fiance's new fiance's ex. Right?
Right.
Funny story. All right. Are we ready to reveal our song choices? Oh, go ahead.
But before we do our song choices,
yes.
If you didn't know, Emily Henry is a Swiftie, and she posted a TikTok, or I don't know if it was a TikTok, but some video, right? Before this came through, and she was interviewed, like, what are the eras for each book?
Yeah.
And so this book, it came out right after the Tortured Poets Department.
Yeah.
So Emily said that the beginning of this book was very TTPD, but the end was more happy moments from Midnights.
Yes.
So you know which albums
I love that.
We had to choose from.
Obviously. I will say, I tried so hard because this is our first episode recording after TTPD came out, which is very exciting. So we have 31 new songs to choose from for our upcoming books. But I tried so hard to find one from TTPD and I just couldn't. So I went back, I listened to a bunch of songs. I did settle on one from Midnights, ironically. This was not influenced by Emily Henry. Maybe it was. But I actually chose Snow on the Beach featuring more Lana Del Rey.
We love more Lana Del Rey.
Yes.
So it's a funny story. I picked one of my least favorite songs on Midnights, which is You're on Your Own, Kid.
Ooh, love that. So 2 Midnight songs.
Yeah.
Excited to talk about those later.
All right. So this book is going to be gossipy. Romance novels, I feel like, are always a little gossipy. So spoiler territory ahead.
Yes.
Very much spoiler territory. So if you want to read this book, pause now. Come back later. If you want to vibe with us, you want to just hear our opinions throughout about Miss Daphne and Miles, then stick around.
All right. Let's get into Funny Story.
So I will say I really liked how the chapters were set up. So like the first couple were like counting down, right, to saying something like, you know, the first one is Wednesday, May 1st, 108 days until I can leave. And so there was like a countdown of like days that like before she could leave, right? So we're like, why are you leaving? What are you leaving for? Like, I don't know. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I did like that.
I did too. And I've come to realize that I love books about books. And I love books about stories and book lovers. So immediately I was drawn in. And also, this is set in Michigan, which is 2 Michigan girlies This is actually our second Michigan book of the season. Somehow we didn't plan for this, but we did do them back to back.
Yeah.
So it's fine. But I feel like this book made me kind of fall in love with Michigan again. I think in the way that it's talked about and the small town vibes. And we both went to college on the West Coast, which is where this takes place. So I feel like it really just, I don't know, I had like a little nostalgic Michigan feel for it.
No, definitely. It made me want to go up to Traverse City really bad. And go to the dunes.
Yeah, we should definitely do that.
Like we said in the synopsis, Daphne is a librarian. She's holding off to leave this town until the readathon for her library is over. So she's worked really hard on it tirelessly, and she doesn't want to, one, let the library down, and two, kind of let herself down, like with all this work. And I feel like too, once we get a little bit more about her and her reasons, like she doesn't want her moving to this town to be for nothing. So like the readathon is something that she can own and that she does, that I think that's kind of holding her there for that. So it's giving her a reason other than Peter.
Yeah, Peter. Peter. And we kind of get introduced to Peter through their, what she calls their funny story, how they met. And I think that she does talk about herself in like a mildly like self-deprecating lens, especially at the beginning when it comes to her and her relationship with Peter. Basically, they met, it was adorable, they've been together for a while. We find out that Peter has left Daphne, his fiance, for his quote-unquote platonic best friend Petra. It happened on the night of his bachelor party. You know, Petra was there because obviously best friend in the wedding, hanging out. And then Peter came home the next day and was like, hey. And the way he did it made me hate him fucking immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Hated him. So he comes home, Petra's in the car, and he's like, hey, funny story, haha, I'm actually in love with my best friend. We're just gonna go dip on like a quick little like pre-honeymoon situation, and we'll give you a week to like figure out your life, and then I'll come back. I'm gonna give you your space.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Like, thank you, Emily, for making me hate him right away, because I think later you could have been like, oh, well, yeah, Daphne, go back to him, right?
Yeah.
But just like, no, instant asshole. Like, no, you are a dick.
And his, Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, Down Bad was a song that Emily Henry said was kind of like the start of the book, and I agree. Yeah. I feel like Down Bad was kind of like the beginning phases, but Daphne does throw almonds at Peter. She does like grab a handful of almonds and throws them at the truck as they go away. Then Miles shows up, and Miles is Petra's now ex-boyfriend. So he is in the exact same position as Daphne, except him and Petra were not engaged, but they were living together.
Yep. I will say I love Miles.
Love him.
I will talk about my feelings about this book as we go, but
yes,
I love Miles. And I know people on TikTok were saying it, you said it too, that he gives off like Nick Miller vibes from New Girl.
100%.
And yeah, he's just, what I like about him, I think compared to a lot of like romance novels that we read, like the men in them are usually like these like kind of powerful or like almost kind of too good people, if that makes sense.
I literally was just thinking like almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
Like they fell from the sky and now you are in your own romance novel.
Where I feel like Miles
in this romance
is
like his real life.
Yeah, it's just like a normal guy that you would just meet, just an average guy that wears Crocs and smokes weed, like,
and has tattoos.
Yeah, and just
oh my god, when he was blasting All By Myself at the top, like just full fucking blast. That I love that so much.
Yeah, he just seems like a real guy, and
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I really like, I don't know, we could go at different things, but I liked Miles. I liked how he was written.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, then they have a crazy idea. It's kind of a funny story.
Let's put a funny story counter. How many times we say it throughout the course of the podcast.
Daphne and Miles move in together because now Miles has an extra bedroom because Petra's not living there, and Daphne's getting kicked out of her house. So here they go.
And Daphne's not from Michigan, so she moved to Michigan for Peter. And Peter and Petra's families grew up together. Like, they're both very well off, very wealthy. The thing, too, is that Peter did not put Daphne's name on the house.
Nope.
So she had no claim to it. So, yeah, she moves into this little apartment in Waning Bay, Michigan with Miles. And they mostly stay out of each other's way at first. Like, Miles is pretty messy, but he keeps his mess contained to his room. He's respectful.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting, too, because Daphne has such a terrible perception of Miles because she knows him through the lens of Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter, would just talk mad shit about Miles all the time. Basically, he's, a no-good, rundown, takes advantage of people, more or less a drug addict, and he has no ambitions in life. And come to find out, that's actually not the case.
No.
Literally at all.
No, but I could see that, because, Peter comes from, this well-off family, and, Miles just doesn't fit that mold. And obviously, there's some feelings that he had deep down for Petra, too, that, whoever she was with probably wasn't good enough for her, too. I think comes from a lot of that lens. But, yeah, definitely how Daphne sees Miles is all from how Peter, set him up and, described him and his attitude towards them.
Yeah. We do find out a little bit about Daphne and her mom, and after her dad left, they kind of just constantly moved around from place to place. And her mom is her lifeline, her absolute best friend. And she has fond memories in some places and not so fond memories in others, because when her mom took on a role opening new branches of a bank, they kept moving and they started to lose the magic of the relationship that they had together. So Daphne does kind of live light, pack light, and hasn't really found roots anywhere. And so now that this place has been completely tainted, because this is Peter's hometown, this is Peter's place, she feels like, why stay? Why even bother?
Yeah, which is why she's counting down to the readathon.
Yep.
And like we said, right? That's what's going to make this place kind of rewrite the memory of it as being hers. And Daphne's still holding on to her wedding dress. She can't figure out what to do with it. So it's just in a closet, stuffed, packed away.
Yep.
And then they receive an invitation to the wedding of the year. Peter and Petra's wedding. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
And it was scheduled for 1 month after Daphne and Peter were supposed to get married.
I'm give it some time.
Also, the fucking audacity to send an invitation to both of them.
They have to be delusional.
Absolutely fucking delusional. I think this is and I'm not trying to be offensive, but I think that once you reach a certain status in life, you do have to live a little delusionally. You just naturally become partially delusional.
Yeah.
And I think that these two really fit the fucking bill.
Yeah. I just couldn't believe it. I'm just okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Miles and Daphne start drinking some wine. They decide to go out to the meat locker, and they befriend this guy named Gil. Daphne just starts to see Miles, in a different way, learns a little bit more about what he does for a living, that he's not just some guy that just bounces around to a bunch of different jobs, and why he kind of does the jobs that he does. She just sees how Miles interacts with Gil, and how he can just kind of become friends with anyone, versus her who doesn't really do that, right? Doesn't really have friends, and kind of struggles with opening up and first impressions. So she just starts to see Miles in a different way, maybe taking off that Peter lens, Miles is actually a decent guy.
Yeah.
And then of course they get drunk.
Naturally.
And do stupid things like RSVP to their ex's wedding.
Yep. Yep. So they RSVP to the wedding, and Peter calls Daphne the next day and is like, oh, whoa. Oh, no, you don't have to come to the wedding. You don't have to do it.
Why'd you invite her?
Literally. And so they drunkenly RSVP'd, but in the moment she gets heated, because then he's like, oh, well, you didn't, RSVP with the +1. And she's like, the fuck I didn't. So she's like, actually, my +1 RSVP'd himself. It's Miles we're dating. Miles and I are together. And the lie just straight out.
Right.
And Peter is like, whoa. You're not serious, right? You're definitely not with Miles. The wedding's for a few more months. Let's not count on that happening. And again, I'm sitting here who is this man? who the fuck does this man think he is?
Oh, Peter. And so Daphne like tells Miles like, hey, so I this is what I said. And I was like, this is great. Okay, cool. Like, let's lean into this. Like, you know, stages pictures so she could post it on social media if she wants, and just like, sure, let's do it. Like, what do we have to lose? We can do this. And Daphne does make a friend.
Yes.
Her coworker, Ashley, and they do end up going out. Daphne's trying to think of like places that she can go out that she's going to avoid Peter.
Correct.
And so she suggests to go to the winery where Miles works. And I just think it's funny because like Ashley like describes this bartender at the winery, and I like knew instantly. I was like, she's describing Miles. Like, we're gonna get to the winery, and then we're gonna put two and two together that the drug dealer or whatever she calls him, like,
yes,
is Miles, which I thought was just so funny.
And something she like, I really loved the way that she wrote this relation, like the not just the actual relationship, but like the female friendship and kind of the realizations that Daphne had about herself through female friendship. And Ashley was like not about it for the longest time. And I think Daphne really just got confidence from watching Miles just befriend random people on the street and like, you know, at the meat locker to open up this, you know, crack open this female friendship with her.
Yeah. Ashley describes Miles as the hot drug dealer bartender.
Yes. Immediately, that's Miles.
Yeah, I'm like, she's talking about Miles. So they get there and they like sit at the bar, and of course Miles is the bartender, and he like jokingly refers to Daphne as his girlfriend, and she's like, oh, ha ha ha, he's my roommate. And I'm just like, oh, Miles.
Now here's the thing though, the other coworkers, like the other people at the winery, think that Miles is actually dating Daphne because who else has been talking about it than fucking Petra? And now Miles got the job because of Petra, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly.
Probably because he moved there.
Because of her, yeah. But Petra knows everyone that Miles works with. And so she's been telling people like Miles is in a relationship now. So they just have to kind of lean into it a little bit. Which honestly, it doesn't sound like a bad thing because it seems like they get a little extra wine, maybe some extra food.
Right. Daphne kind of tells him how she's like, you know, I did believe Peter's thinking, like saying that you were like a useless, unmotivated druggie. She just talks about too, like how she plans to leave. And Miles is like, no, stay, like work hard for your own path. Like, don't let Peter ruin Michigan for you. Right.
Yeah.
Like, let me show you what it has to offer. And Michigan has a lot. And like, just to show her kind of all the reasons why Michigan is beautiful and why she should give it a chance, right?
Yep.
Like, you said, Britt, she just does a good job of like romanticizing Michigan in it.
Yeah.
She went to college. Emily Henry, the author, went to college in Michigan, and like on the west side too. Not the same college we went to, but pretty close.
Yeah.
And it's just gorgeous over there. And
it really is. Like, and I don't know, he talks to her about like Petoskey fries and things like that are so exclusive, and he calls her a fudgy, which is something that I haven't heard in literally years being from Southeast Michigan.
Yeah.
We don't hear that over here. Something too, like Miles kind of talks to her about like, oh, you were like a gym couple and, you know, you had wheatgrass and, you know, Peter had like a very strict regimen. And this is where too, I think like I started to see the lens of like Peter was a successful man, came from a wealthy family, and he like had an image to maintain. And naturally Daphne got swept up in that image, which included hiking and going to the gym and taking wheatgrass shots and doing things that she like would never want to or willingly do on her own, but naturally just fell into his life.
I think it gave her like some stability too. So like definitely with like,
yeah,
you know, I don't think we talk about, you know, there's some books that we've read that the parent is very flighty and, you know, Amber, her mom definitely was not like that, but I think just the stability piece too with Peter gave her a lot more. And like, I mean, we learned a lot about her dad too, and her dad was very in and out. So I think she really liked that about Peter, is that stability, that like predictableness, like
totally.
She just like knew what was happening with that.
Then Miles, just basically is like, I will be your tour guide. I will show you why you should stay and why you shouldn't let Peter be the one to drive you out of Michigan. Like, you don't have to stay for any particular reason, but don't leave because of him. like make that decision on your own after seeing everything that Michigan has to offer.
A lot of little cute small things happen, right? So Daphne does story time for the kids at the library every week, and
so
like does all the voices. Like she goes all out, right? This is one of her favorite things that she does. And Miles attends one of the story hours and like sees her do this and sees that side of Daphne that I feel like not a lot of people see right away. So Miles got to see that. And then Miles takes her around to like the local vendors and kind of just shows her that local piece.
Yeah, don't they start to make like a Sunday ritual of it too? Like Sundays they carve out for Waning Day Michigan tourist days.
Yep. And so going to like these local vendors, like Daphne just sees more so too how like Miles is just loved by everybody. Gets to know these people and they just love him, and just she sees that. I think it's just like peeling back the onion too of like, you know, this shell that she's kind of put up with like Peter's perspective, and Miles is just becoming more of like a human to her as like these little things happen. Then they go to a lavender farm.
Yes.
And they run into a very unexpected person. It was bound to happen sooner or later.
It was. I knew it was going to happen.
It's not a big town.
No. So they run into Peter naturally, and he like pulls Daphne aside. And you guys, I'm just laughing because I'm looking back at the outline that I did for this, and my commentary is sitting right there for me. So he pulls Daphne aside to say that Miles is basically a disaster and that she can do better. And my reaction was literally just ew in all caps. Like, first of all, who the fuck are you to talk about a relationship when you just ended our engagement for someone you told me I didn't have to worry about? Let's talk about that first. So she immediately is like, she defends Miles, which I do love that she, no matter what, is like, no, absolutely not. Like, we will not be doing that.
Yeah.
She ends up pulling Miles aside after they break apart and is like, is Peter looking? Can I kiss you? And he just says, okay. So they kiss. And it's obviously for, quote unquote, for Peter. But we all know, because they have like a terrible, super awkward kiss, but then it immediately like just goes so far in the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. And she's like, okay, like, all right, that'll do it. And then looks up and Peter's not even fucking there anymore. Like, he's just gone.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, tension's building between them.
Naturally.
That first kiss, you know?
Yep.
And so, like, through this, too, we learn a little bit more about Miles and his family and, like, that dynamic. And he's not really close to them anymore. He's originally from Chicago, which is really close to Michigan, if you, like, geography-wise. He just tries to really, like, have a positive spin on life, like, not really try to hold it, like, let anything hold him back. Living together, Daphne definitely has some feels for Miles.
Yeah.
Like the Sundays they spend together, running into him around the house if he's not wearing a shirt, like, Daphne sees this guy through another lens, right?
Totally.
So one night they make pizza and they just kind of talk about like all the things that they couldn't do with their like old significant others. Kayaking, watching action movies, just all these different things that they like weren't able to do. We also learn a little bit more about Daphne's mom and like that relationship that they have. I think Daphne's mom is like a little worried about her daughter, like, hey, why don't you come home?
Just a little.
Like, you just, you know, we're getting married and then all of a sudden now you're not and you're stuck in this little small town. Like, do you need money? Like, I'll help you. And Daphne's like, no, it's all good. Because she knows like her mom's like really happy now. Like, you know, her mom's single, she's doing CrossFit, she has friends that she goes to brunch with, dinner with, plays games with, you know, like she's doing all these different things, and she like doesn't want to burden her mother like she feels like her father kind of did growing up, like that relationship. And so the tension is building between them.
It really is. And we do get our first spicy scene.
Yep. They're Netflix and chillin'.
They really are action movie and chillin' at this point, honestly. Like, that's the vibe. And I will say, this was my fourth Emily Henry book. I've only not read at this point, as we're recording, People We Meet on Vacation. And I think the only one Hannah has not read is Happy Place. And I do think this leans towards one of her spicier books. And it wasn't like, it was definitely not too much, in my opinion.
No. So their hands are exploring. They're, you know, getting hot and heavy with their hot and ready pizza.
I'm absolutely
Sorry,
clipping.
I couldn't resist. But they are interrupted because Miles' phone is like blowing up, and it turns out to be his sister who is like blowing up his phone. And Miles is like, it's probably an emergency. Like, she never calls me this much or this like often. Julia, his sister, is, surprise! I'm at the Traverse City Airport. Come get me.
At that point, I was like, Julia. Julia.
Right? And so Miles is like, this is not like her. Like, I'm so sorry, I gotta go. Daphne's like, yeah, okay. And so they have like a kind of a quick conversation about like, what does this look like now that my sister's coming here too, right? And so they're like, you know, we shouldn't get emotionally attached given the state of everything with the breakup and, you know, the wedding coming up. And Daphne was like I think she like was ready to just be like irresponsible, like safe, right? And just like go for it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But, you know, and I think it's cute too, like they make a comment and he's like, she's gonna hate my beard, will you say that you like it, you know? And like Julia gets there, and so Miles is like, do you want to come to the airport with me? And Daphne's like, no, you go pick up your sister on your own. And so like Daphne like tries to make the apartment like look homey and like gets some, you know, food in the fridge and like all this stuff just to like make Miles seem like a normal person, right, for his sister. And so like Julia gets there and they like talk, and Julia is quite a bit younger, like in her like early 20s.
I think she's 23, 24, somewhere around there.
Julia's like, has like a bubbly personality, and like I just picture her as like super talkative and just like, oh my gosh, you're Daphne? Hi, blah, 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 blah. She like makes comment about his beard, and Daphne's like, I like his beard, and she's like, he told you to say that. And just like very little sister vibes for sure. But they do tell Julia about their fake relationship and like the wedding and all of that leads up to it too.
Julia just like, I think seamlessly kind of starts to intertwine with Miles and Daphne and everything they have going on. She starts hanging out with them and Ashley, and Miles and Daphne decide to go sunrise kayaking because that's something that Petra never wanted to do because she's not a morning person and Miles always wanted to do it. And so they said, let's do it. So she wakes up, and this is kind of like it is a direct foreshadow to something that does happen later, but she's sitting and waiting for Miles to come out of his room. And then she doesn't want to wake him up, but it's 5 o'clock in the morning. She's up, she's ready to go. Then it's 5:05, 5:11, and the time is passing. And she kind of goes back and thinks about her dad. This is the first time I think that we've really got any sort of, well, not the first time, but this is a good look into her dad and the situation she went through where she's always waiting at the mailbox for the cards that he's going to send to show up. She's waiting on phone calls for holidays. She's just waiting and constantly waiting for someone, and she hates waiting. And so something that she learned from her mom is that you trust their actions, not their words. These little phrases too, where she says like, don't love anyone who isn't ready to love you back, let go of the people who don't hold on to you. And these thoughts kind of flood Daphne's head in a wave of anxiety anytime someone doesn't show up and anytime she has to wait on someone. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, Miles walks in, not from his bedroom, but from the front door, because he had gone out and gotten them little thermoses of coffee. And, you know, it took a little bit longer. You know, she forgives him and she tries to like basically be like, okay, like there was an explanation, like let's not jump to conclusions. And then we start to get her inner monologue going where she's like, yeah, you have a crush on your roommate. Like, let's just suck it the fuck up at this point.
Yeah. I think it's really cute too, because he like goes and gets coffee, but it's coffee. And Daphne doesn't drink coffee. And she's like, oh, thanks. And I thought you drink coffee. Like you had this cup the other day, like from the little coffee shop. And she's like, oh, I drink chai.
Beautiful.
Which I have chai here in my Taylor cup for Daphne. And so he does remember that like later on, which I think is cute. But the fact that he still went to try to get coffee because, you know, a lot of people drink coffee, but
something too, if you haven't read an Emily Henry book yet, she is, I would say, one of the modern queens of romantic banter, rom-com banter. And I think that, again, we always say this, if you haven't listened to an episode before about us talking about romances, we just don't really partake in talking about the banter that much because we feel like at that point we're basically just reading the book out loud to you. We could never do it justice. Books like these, I feel like you have to read to really get that, like, there are moments here where I was literally blushing, kicking my feet like a little girl. I was holding my Kindle. Like, it was so embarrassing, but I was eating every goddamn second of it up. So we are skipping over a lot of the building relationship that happens through their dialogue, but just know that it is always there, and Emily Henry really usually knocks it out of the park. So
yeah, their banter, like Emily Henry, Abby Jimenez, like it's just so cute back and forth. But yeah, you definitely have to read it because Britt and I are not in a romance novel together. So
no,
our banter,
it's not going to be that. Sparks are not going to fly, and that's okay. That's fine, you know.
Nope.
But they go.
That's why we let the authors and like the professionals do the job. We just get to talk about it.
That's what's up. But they go kayaking, and to be honest, I fucking love Daphne's like, oh my god, this is horrible through the whole thing, because I'm not gonna lie, if I was kayaking at like 5:30 in the morning, watching the beautiful sunrise, love it, but the distance that they had to travel sounded like an absolute fucking nightmare.
No, thank you. But yeah, a cute little exploratory moment for them. And they end up going out with Ashley again. And like Daphne and Miles like have a little like flirty banter again, but they don't really cross the line. But we get to know Ashley a little bit more too. She is a mom, divorced, like just going through a lot there. But
yeah,
she just becomes like a really good friend to Daphne, and like I think is a good like contrast to her too. And Ashley is very much like,
I agree,
this is what friends are for, like let's be friends, like I need a friend. And Ashley has her own stuff that she's dealing with and kind of is able to be there for Daphne like in a good way. You know, Daphne tries to like keep her distance with Miles because Miles, you know, wants to keep things casual is what he said, right? Like doesn't want to be emotionally attached because then he like panics and everything, whatever. But Daphne sees on social media is a bitch sometimes. Rewind a little bit. Peter and Daphne's best friends all actually started dating. And so she sees on social media that those friends are like having brunch at her favorite place that they used to go to with Peter and Petra.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know, like, nope, I don't care. She just kind of has a reaction like she's ready to blur those boundaries. Like if like her friends are gonna go there. Daphne actually goes to a little poker night with some locals and has a good time, but Ashley kind of calls Daphne out and is like, why aren't you your own person? Like, it seems like you can't do anything without your partner, where you're like a wee girl. Like, we have to do this, right?
Yep.
And so just, I really like you said earlier, the female friendship between the two of them. I think it's really, really interesting. And then this was my favorite, okay?
Yes. So go for it.
Miles has like 2 tickets to something and is like,
he calls it a concert.
Yeah. This is definitely not a concert.
No.
I think it's funny because like Daphne or Julia and Ashley like know what's going on. Like Julia tells Ashley because like they've gotten close.
Yeah.
And Daphne's like, I don't know where he's taking me. And Julia's like, he hasn't told you?
Yeah.
You know, she gets dressed up. It was a nice dress. And they pull up to the location. And Daphne sees a sign for senior prom. My first thought was like, oh my gosh, like they're chaperoning prom.
Yeah, I know. That's what I thought too.
And then I was like, no, it's a senior prom. Like it's like an
senior
old people
citizen.
Prom. Like how cute.
I love it.
So they like show up and, you know, Miles is like, well, I thought like we could help you get some sponsors for the readathon. And she's, you know, Daphne's been emailing these people and Miles is like, you know, seeing them in person, right? These are like local people. Like they want to know who they're doing business with, right?
Yeah.
And she actually walks away with some good sponsors from here for the library in general and the readathon. So I'm like,
yeah,
way to go, Miles. Way to go.
I know. I love how truly thoughtful Miles is in terms of that kind of stuff, like the little things. And we'll talk about it later, but Daphne mentions not wanting grand romantic gestures, but just wanting these like little daily recognitions and like being thought about and to be seen through the relationship. And I know we see it through like her lens, but we can see that Miles definitely sees her throughout this journey while they figure their shit out.
He just knows the little things, but dun dun dun, they run into unexpected guests at the senior prom. So originally Miles bought these tickets for him and Petra, right? So Miles didn't think Petra was going to show up because they were supposed to go, right? And he had the tickets. But of course, Petra and Peter show up.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
You know, they keep up the charade, right, of the relationship, and they kiss on the dance floor. And
they kiss because, like, Peter is a fucking asshole. Like, you know, Petra is one of those people, even Daphne describes her as someone who's just universally well-liked. Like, she's drop-dead gorgeous, but she will always, you know, she'll talk to anyone. She becomes fast friends with people. And Peter has a stick up his ass. constantly.
Yeah.
They start talking between the two of them. You know, Petra mentions that like Daphne's usual style is so, she says specifically buttoned up. And they kind of like make a joke to her being very like pulled together. You know, Miles is like, oh yeah, she's buttoned up, you know, like a secret. And Peter's like a librarian. Peter, shut up. Shut the fuck up. And then Miles is like, oh, cool. I've always had a thing for hot librarians because that's Miles, you know, that's the vibe that he gives off. Mm-hmm. Peter's like, oh, well, what about you, Daphne? What about you? He says specifically, you've been harboring a secret bartender fantasy? I wanted to smack him square across the fucking jaw. And that's when they kiss because Daphne is like, no, but the roommate thing is pretty hot. And then just kisses Miles right in front of them. Like, smashes herself into him and is like, yeah, no, we're fucking doing this. Like, right now.
And then Daphne ends up like running out and Miles like runs after her. And Daphne's like, I don't want this to be pretend anymore.
Yep.
But okay, this is where I'm gonna interject my feelings here.
Yes.
I'll talk about this later too. Like, I enjoyed this book.
Yeah.
I'd read it again, enjoyed it. However, I did not believe Daphne and Miles.
Interesting.
I did not. I could not get that. Like,
yeah.
I could like understand it, but I just didn't. I wasn't rooting for them.
Okay. Because so my feelings, and again, guys, we don't talk about this, so this is me and Hannah. You know what? We never really do this, so let's do it now. Why not? Let's start now. So my feelings of the book was I enjoyed it genuinely because of her, like her writing style is just so good. The banter, I was kicking my feet. I was like so cute. I thought it was adorable. After I finished it, I was like, loved it. Amazing. Great. Sat away from it for a couple of days because I had it on my Kindle at midnight when it released and I read it all the way through. And the further I sit away from it, the more I just feel like something was missing. Like, that's what I keep feeling. I feel like there's a piece to, I don't know if it's Miles and Daphne. I think it is. There's like a piece of Miles and Daphne that I think should have been somewhere in this midsection that we got to see a little bit more of the romance between them.
Yeah, because I thought it was fun. I thought it was great, but I like almost, or I'm gonna fast forward because literally have like 10 chapters left, so not that much left of the.
I mean, we're moving.
But like, I didn't want them to end up together. Like, I wanted her to like have the time and everything and be like, perfect, this was great. Like, clean up Michigan. Like, I'm ready to like do my own thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I really liked their, like I liked their relationship. I think like it was fun. I like in the moment, but it felt very reboundish to me. And I just didn't like.
Yeah. Do you think she was written as too much of a flight risk for it to make sense?
Could have been, yeah.
Because I feel like there was a heavy, like she applies for, we'll just skip ahead here too. So she applies for a job back in Maryland so she can, move back home, and that's her plan before she like really falls for Miles. Mm-hmm. And I think that there was such an emphasis on her wanting to get out and her convincing her to stay that might be the missing piece, because I haven't been able to, no one else that I know has finished this book yet, so I haven't been able to talk about it. I do think that there was just something inherently missing, because I wanted this to be a 5-star read so badly. And we'll talk about book ratings later on, but obviously it's not going to be a 5 for either of us. But I still genuinely loved this book.
Yes.
But yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, but I feel like something was missing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that she was written very much as like wanting to leave, and I felt like her motives for staying were still centered around Miles
and not herself.
Yeah. I don't know. That's what I think rubbed me the wrong way, but I still enjoyed this book so much. I loved them as like characters, but I just have to say, like, there were certain parts and I'm like, I want you guys just to have fun. Like, I guess I wanted it like to be like just for the summer, not like the book just for the summer, but like the concept, like just for the summer, like let's get this out of our system. Let's like, do this and move on. But I mean, to each their own, like, totally. Great, I'm glad. But I think I know we talked about this. I just don't know if it was on the podcast or if it was just me and you. Yeah. But like, if couples and books stay together or not.
Oh, we talked about the story just for the summer during the episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brittany and I talk all the time. So I'm like, did we talk about this? Like when we were recording or just normally?
And the problem is too, like the worst part is we'll be having like 6 separate conversations. So like we're talking in our text thread, there's a Snapchat story going on about the dogs, and then I've sent her 15 TikToks. She's responding to all of them and then sending her own subsequent 15 TikToks.
So there's a lot of going on. But this is a couple I don't see staying together, but not like parting in like a big dramatic way. Like having like a very mature like breakup, like, you know, thank you for everything. Like, cool.
Yeah.
Or they could stay together, and I would be so happy for them if they did. Like, I'm not.
But you just didn't believe it.
I just didn't believe it.
That's totally fair. And honestly, I've seen a couple of reviews like that too. I feel like, yeah, it's interesting though, because I think that's so hard because I think I found myself trying to convince myself that there was nothing wrong with the book over the last few days after I finished it. Like, I wanted so badly to just love everything about it. So excited. But I think that's so weird though, because I loved the experience of reading it. Mm-hmm. Like I had so much fun with the book. But yeah, I do feel like there was just something was missing for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that I didn't believe them, but I do feel like I was missing like a key piece of like the romantic, like something that clicked.
Yeah, because I guess I felt like it was too much proximity relationship than actual like feelings, and I think that's where, but like but the proximity, I can see it happening, like I can see this happening. I just didn't believe their like deep love for each other so soon.
Yes.
Do
you think so? We said at the beginning, we'll spoil anything and everything cover to cover. So So at the end where she's like, we need some time apart, but then we're immediately in an epilogue where they bought a house together. Do you think if that epilogue had been them still living apart but dating, like, do you think that might have shifted your perspective rather than them immediately moving in together?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because I still felt like it was over a year, like in the epilogue. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That can naturally happen after that, but I just felt like, because what it's like, she has 108 days until she can leave, right? Is like the start of it.
Yes.
So it just felt very soon for me, like in the matter of like less than 4 months, that they had this like deep, instant love connection. Mm-hmm. And I mean, then I go back, like just for the summer, I was like, oh, they definitely have this instant love connection.
Yeah.
So
well,
take what I say with a grain of salt, but
okay, but not me being like, oh, do you think it's because she was written as a flight risk when Emma was actually flighting? Like she fucking flew the coop so fast.
I think it's just weird to me because like Petra and Pete, like it just like seemed too like perfect, but then I'm like, maybe I do, like, I don't know. Now I'm like going back on it.
No, like I said, I think something is missing. I don't know if it's for me, it's necessarily that I didn't believe them, but I think that I needed more of the romantic parts of their relationship. And I think she was trying to show romance through like a building friendship, but I don't think it was enough time to build a friendship. And most of their friendship, at least through the first, because up until page like 200, basically, their friendship hinges on their terrible situation that they were connected by. Mm-hmm. So maybe if we got out of that at like page 100 or 150 and we had an extra 50 to 100 pages of them really head first in something that was outside, that was like removed from the situation that brought them together in the first place.
You know what I think it is? You know what I think part of it is I love a good fake dating.
Yeah.
But I feel like they didn't fake date.
Yes.
They just mentioned, I think that's what it is. I think like,
yes, I
like a fake dating trope because like, you know, you get to kind of play around with it, right? But like, I feel like they never really fake dated. Like they said it, you know, they RSVP to the wedding and like that. I wish I had more of them like in public fake dating, if that makes sense. And that might then like more of the romance, you know, that piece.
Yeah. So I feel like it's connecting for me now. So okay. So you coming off of that, I feel like that probably is it then, because the dates that they went on had the tourist attractions that they went on had this like undercurrent of like, will they, won't they, do they want to, do they not want to, rather than them just leading in and being like, you're my girlfriend, you're my boyfriend.
This is our date. Yeah.
We're going on a date together. And maybe if when Miles is like, I'm going to be your tour guide, instead he's like, I'm your boyfriend until the wedding. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take you on date. show you around Michigan, and then from there you can decide what you want to do. But until the wedding, I'll be your boyfriend.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think you fucking figured it out.
But I would totally reread this book again. Like I
would too. Because like
my opinion here is not like anything against the book because I think it's great. But I think it's just like me. I mean, I will say my least favorite Emily Henry book is People You Meet on Vacation. I don't even know if it's People You Meet or People We Meet, but
I think the UK and the US versions are different.
Okay, but like I would not read that book again. Sorry, Emily. Love all your other ones.
I would not read Happy Place again. Happy Place was my least favorite.
But like Book Lovers, amazing. Beach Read, great.
Yeah.
This one is kind of in the middle, but I still enjoyed it. All right.
I have fun.
We'll fast forward a little bit because we kind of just like jumped around, but I just had to say like this is kind of where I started to be like, I wish at the senior prom too, that they were like fake dating still. Like
when they were there, they were like holding hands and they didn't kiss just because it was in front of Petra and Peter.
Mm-hmm. Like they're like we're boyfriend and girlfriend. I don't know, just kind of played into it more. Yeah. I think would have been a little bit more fun, but maybe
I agree.
I don't know. But anyway, so
moving on.
So then they're outside of senior prom and they kiss again because Miles is like, no, I don't want to pretend either. Like, I wouldn't do this if I didn't actually like you. And, things get a little heated with them a little later. But then they do get shut down because Miles kind of puts up a wall and is like, I have a complicated relationship with like my parents, and it's kind of shaped how I am in relationships, and I just don't want to like panic and freak out and shut down again.
Yeah. Oh, real quick too. There's something that I thought was like a little strange like thing that Miles constantly pointed out. And it's when Daphne moaned when she was eating food. Like one of those like, oh, the food is so good, kind of like, it is not supposed to be like sexual moan. And he commented on it like, oh, there's like the famous Daphne moan that I know. And I like, that was one thing that I was just like, how often are we going to do that?
So Ashley and Julia convince Daphne to try on her wedding dress because like the only people that have ever seen her in their wedding dress are her mom and her ex-mother-in-law, whatever, Peter's mom. And then she gets stuck in it. And of course, Julia and Ashley are like off getting supplies for milkshakes, and Miles comes home and runs into Daphne in a wedding dress. So it's like, hi.
Yeah, oh my god,
it's just funny. Like, definitely read that scene. Like, it's funny because he like ends up like lubing up her the zipper to try to get her, like bends her over it's chaotic.
It's really funny. Yeah.
Then we have another unexpected guest.
Okay, this I fucking loved. Right, so she's back at the apartment. She had missed a call earlier from her dad, but basically like mom, he was asking her mom for her new address, probably should just mail her something, but her dad is there. Jason is present, and Jason is there with his new wife, Starfire.
Oh gosh. Starfire.
And honestly, like these scenes I could picture like 1,000%. Like, did you watch Schitt's Creek?
Mm-hmm.
I imagine her to be like a 50-year-old Alexis. And also like when Alexis accidentally takes them to the cult place. Like if Alexis was part of the cult leader of like, what was it, like Elevate or something like that? That's what I imagine Starfire to be. Just very like, hi. Oh, my sweet baby, you can call me mom if you want. And Daphne's like, yeah, I would absolutely rather kill myself than do that. Thank you so much. We do get a lot of information about her dad during this time frame too, just really like how he was flighty, how he left and he could never be reliable for her. He just shows up and she's like, great, he's gonna impose on my fucking life again. But instead, the behaviors that he starts displaying with Starfire around are vastly different and in stark contrast to what he was like before. He, instead of just assuming that he was going to be able to stay at their apartment, he had already booked a hotel. And it might have been like the seediest motel known to man 40 minutes away because it was all booked up for the summer, but he still did it. He talks about like her childhood and how her love for books and love of the library came about, but she has this like very different recollection of it because she remembers him like flirting with the librarian and not being present for it. And it's basically just a few chapters of Daphne having this like internal struggle, and her dad and them having to move around so much with her mom is really what made her kind of the way she is, where she doesn't necessarily have things for herself. She naturally becomes paired in with, you know, whoever she's with and whoever she's around, which could be friends, it could be family, it could be a relationship. You know, they go swimming. There's like a bunch of, I recommend you read this book simply for the Starfire quotes. I'm not going to lie. Just for Starfire.
Yeah, I feel like the side characters in this book are great. Like Starfire, Ashley, Julia, loved them. Yeah, there's just a lot. And like her dad, it's like, oh, it's a belated birthday. Like, did you not see my birthday card where I said we got married? And just all this stuff. And they like go out to eat, and her dad pays for the check. And like before that, she's like worried about like, you know, because her dad's like, oh, order one of everything almost, right? And she's like, oh, how are we gonna explain like that we have to split the check later? And her dad like picks it up, and Daphne like kind of opens up to Miles and is like, you know, I don't trust him. Like I don't know, like something. He might have changed, but something still seems kind of like off, right?
Yeah.
Daphne's like getting very swept up with Miles. Like her calendar isn't as updated anymore. Like there's just little things that like she's not paying attention to anymore. That like between her dad and Miles, I feel like there's a lot that's like taking her focus off of her normal routine.
Yeah. And I don't think we mentioned that either, but her and Peter had a very structured, regimented life. Like they scheduled everything, gym sessions, they scheduled sex, they scheduled literally every detail of their relationship. Like the spontaneity didn't exist in pretty much any capacity. And there's nothing wrong with like structuring things like that in life, but it was to the point where it was so rigid that there was no flexibility, no spontaneity, none of that stuff. So now she's with Miles, who is the definition of spontaneous, over the top, do whatever. And when she first got there, she kept her regimented calendar. She had everything ready to go. And now, like Hannah said, she's no longer updating that. But that is a huge shift in her personality. And I think a huge shift toward the wee girl that Ashley mentioned, where she gets so swept up with Miles and this, and, you know, this guy and her dad. And it becomes a reason for things that like keep her afloat to like fall to the wayside, because now they're not intrinsically related to the thing or the person that she's, you know, has at the forefront of her mind.
Totally. Ashley calls out sick at work. Starfire and Jason, her dad, Daphne's dad, just disappear, right? They've meet this guy that has a place in Mackinac, and Miles shows up to story time. Like there's just so much stuff that goes on, like I feel like on this day at the library. So Daphne is like, can you take me somewhere, like somewhere I've never been?
Yep.
And he takes her to the beach, and his favorite beach, and she's like, oh, I thought the beach is closed at a certain time. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
The beach is closed? No. And they're holding hands. I think they hold hands, right? I don't know. They're little cutie stuff.
They're cute.
I picture them holding hands because, like, you know, when you're walking and you're kind of like bumping hand, like you're just like just
walking
next to somebody. Yeah. And then they hook up for the first time.
They sure do. And Miles tells her too, like, you know, she's like, oh my God, thank you for bringing me to this place. Like right before they hook up, go back. And he's like, I'm not doing this to be nice. Like, I'm doing this because I want to spend time with you. Like, I want to be around you. Like, have you ever thought about that or what? But yeah, they drive home, and like literally as soon as the door shuts, boom.
Yep.
It's on.
Not only are they intimate physically, but they get intimate like emotionally too. They like talk a lot about their parents again, and just kind of connect over their family situations and kind of how they were raised, and kind of had to almost be an adult at a young age, like with their parents' dynamic. And so she wakes up in Miles's bed, and you know, they still spend the day together and just like being cute, right? Like she's just having a great day with Miles.
Yeah.
But this is where like she just gets so swept up in him. Ashley, right? Her friend is just like cold, like very icing like Daphne out.
Yes.
And then Daphne realizes, shit, I forgot about her birthday. And they had made plans. Daphne had insisted that for her birthday, they like paint her house and they like do all this stuff. Like Daphne hyped it up for Ashley's birthday and then let her down because it was like the same day, you know, that her dad left. You know, Ashley called out. Now we know why, right?
Yep.
And like you said, it just kind of goes back to Daphne being that wee girl and being that whoever she's with, kind of that attachment, and that's who she's focused on.
Yeah.
And so Ashley's icing her out. Like, poor Daphne. Like, this is just like the pile up of everything, right?
I know.
And then Miles is supposed to pick her up from work, and Miles is late.
And the thing is, too, like, he convinced her by his actions and his words. She was like, oh, absolutely reasonable explanation. He will be here. Guaranteed. Point blank.
But he doesn't show up. He doesn't even text her until she texts him. And he just says something came up. You know, it just goes back to like her, you know, being the last person waiting, right, for her dad. Now for Miles, and just like a spiral, she's like, nope, okay. It's a call about an interview in Maryland, you know, the job she applied for, and she's like, let's do it. Like, I'm ready to leave Michigan. Let's take this interview in Maryland. So then she gets back home, and Miles had left her a box of fudge and a little note when she gets back. So if you're from Michigan, my brain instantly connected these things. Like, and I was like, what happened here? So her dad went to Mackinac. So if you're not familiar with Mackinac, one thing that it's famous for is fudge. Like, Mackinac fudge is the best fudge.
Yes.
So
the
good.
Best fudge, you guys. You need to go online and order Mackinac Island fudge right now if you're not from Michigan and you have no plans of coming here. It, especially if you like cherries, their cherry chocolate fudge. Shut the fuck up. Good. It's so good.
Instantly, when this box of fudge is here, I was like, Mackinac fudge? What? Like, who is Mackinac? Her dad. But we'll get to that later. But like, I was like, this fudge is suspicious. Like, where did he get this fudge? It felt very significant for me.
Yes, you can get fudge elsewhere, but like, I know that she was definitely trying to make the deliberate connection for people that understand Michigan. But again, for someone who's not from Michigan, that would have just gone right over their heads. But for us, we're like, that's the fucking fudge, baby. That's the good shit.
Yep. But then there's the smallest man who ever lived knocks on her door. Peter's there. And I just knew it. I knew they fucking broke up.
My God. Yeah, because...
And Peter's back.
Peter's back. And Miles spent the whole book saying that Peter and Petra would not last because Peter was just trying to chase the next best thing, see if it was better, see if the grass was greener on the other side. And he was going to, you know, call it off and all this shit. So Peter comes back, this stupid fucking little bitch, and he's like, I promise, I want us back. I want our life back. And Daphne immediately is like, oh, ew. No, I don't want that. Thanks, but no thanks. Don't want that. Also, though, because Peter is also a piece of shit, and he did this to hurt Daphne, not to help her, to hurt her. He informed her that while Miles was gone from the apartment and she hasn't seen him, that he spent the day moving Petra out of the house. Miles spent the day with Petra, moving her out of the house. And so Daphne spirals.
Which I don't blame her. Like,
no.
I didn't believe that, like, Miles would go back to Petra, though. I did not believe that.
I didn't either.
I say, like, I didn't believe Daphne and Miles, and it's not that I didn't believe... like their relationship, it just that long term I wasn't quite there, but like I did believe that Miles and Petra would not get back together. So when Peter said this, I was like, fuck you, like you were saying this just to be an asshole. Like,
correct, like you're saying it with malintent, like malicious intent,
just more so to like manipulate Daphne into coming back to you because you had Daphne like under your spell and like everything. And so she spirals, starts just walking, and then there's a thunderstorm. I'm just picturing her with like her makeup running, just walking in the rain, just soaked, and Miles finds her and like tries to offer her a ride, and she like gets in, and then they kind of like he pulls over and he's like, I was helping a friend, and she's like because she knows. He's like gets all panicky because he's like, no, I want to make it up to you, like what else can I do? And she's like, I don't need a bigger apology gift, you know, like romantic gestures aren't my thing. Like I just want somebody who shows up when they say they will. And like her trust was broken. Like that's what really happened there. But what annoyed me here years, I was like, Miles should have gotten out of that fucking car and been like, Daphne, no, you get in this car. Like, the fact that he, like, left her on the side of the road, I was like, Miles, come on, bro. Like, don't do that to her.
And, like, the fact that he hid that it was Petra, and the fact that he did not bring up her dad and where he, like, legitimately was in that moment, I was like, Miles, I'm gonna need you to put your Crocs in sport mode, baby. I'm gonna need you to strap in.
Like, I think I wanted that romantic, like, that romantic, like, rain, like, moment where they're in the rain and they're like both like just like talking to each other. And, like, I was helping her, but I love you. And, like, you know, he does say, like, does throw out that he loves her in this moment. But, like, I wanted that, like, intensity right there from them.
I agree.
That, like, kiss in the rain and that romantic, you know, like, moment just reminds me of, like, The Notebook, you know, and it's like, but whatever, they're real people. And, like,
I mean, this
is a romance novel, but at the same time, who knows, like, it's a small town too. It's not like they left her on, like, a highway, but still.
After the whole situation with Miles, Daphne does call her mom and lets her know what's going on, basically. You know, she started with dad visiting, running through everything. And she basically tells Daphne, like, listen, baby girl, we can't run from all the uncomfortable feelings. Like, sometimes we just have to sit and work through the discomfort to get to the other side and to get to the things that we want. You know, she talks about how her mom was a realist and how she's turned into a cynic. And I think it was just a lovely little conversation between the two of them. When she gets off the phone, she texts Harvey and she's like, can you arrange a poker night for me? Because I have an idea. And from there, she decides to try and make it up to Ashley by having this impromptu poker night where Ashley's away from her house. She breaks into Ashley's house low-key, gets paint, starts painting the room the color that they were supposed to. And Ashley comes home to her in the middle of it. And she's like, what the fuck, basically. But they have, like, a really special shared moment where she's like, maybe I was a little too hard on you. And, like, I really care about us and this friendship. And Ashley also invites Daphne to stay with her up until the readathon, just so she can have some space from the situation until she can figure out what the hell's going on.
So then she does go back to the apartment because she has to get something. And she sees, like, a shadowy figure and, like, she, like, screams and then she's like, Julia? Daphne? Julia's like, you're back? Daphne says it to Julia first, like, you're back, because she was, like, supposed to get her own apartment and, like, stay for a while, right?
Yeah.
And then Julia's like, you're back. And Daphne's like, I didn't go anywhere. And Julia's like, tell that to my brother. She's like, wait, I'm mad at you.
Yeah.
Just like that little sister, I feel like. And so they kind of talk about how, like, kind of what happened. And Julia's like, well, he professed his love for you and you didn't say it back, even though you mean it. Like, Julia's like, come on, like, you love him too, like, why didn't you say anything? Julia and Miles actually end up having, like, a really good talk about, like, their childhood and kind of just their perceptions of each other, right? So, you know, Miles feels like he has to be there for Julia all the time and, like, kind of that consistency, and Julia didn't want to let him down and didn't really like college and all that, like, just there was a lot that they didn't talk about with each other, that they were able to kind of have this open conversation after the whole shit went down with Daphne and Miles. I think Julia just makes a really good point that, you know, she thought, like, that Miles, like, managed to escape their childhood without becoming, like, suspicious of everyone, and kind of, you know, how he was able to be, like, friends and comforting to be friendly with people. But Julia just says, you know, like, what she realized is that it might not have made Miles mistrust other people, but it sure as hell made him mistrust himself. And so, like, he just kind of convinced himself that he couldn't be what Daphne needed, and it was all on him, and he just kind of starts to put up these walls once people try to enter into his life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we didn't go too much into Miles' backstory, but I still, at the end of the day, think you should read this book because there's so much that we didn't touch on, the dialogue and all that. But he does have a rough family history, and they do connect with that, like, as a friendship over the relationship that they had with their parents and things like that.
So then it's readathon day.
Yes.
So it is the day we've been waiting for, is the readathon at the library. So she gets to the library early with Harvey, and, you know, the anticipation, like, they're so excited, right? And so people start arriving with their decorations, and Like, it just sounds like such a fun little event, like a little fantasy corner. Like different genres have their own little setup in the library. Things always happen
naturally,
and 4 volunteers call out, and she's like, well, no worries, like we have extra volunteers, but not for 4 of them to not be here.
Yep.
And she's like, don't worry, I got this, like I'll take care of it, because there's other fires to put out. And Daphne actually like has like a good call with her dad and just kind of like stands up for herself and is like, no, Dad, like I'll call you when I'm ready. It reminded me of like the end of Just for the... Oh yeah, spoilers for Just for the Summer too, guys, FYI. Hopefully you've already listened to it and read that, since we talked about it a while ago. You're not just jumping in. But right,
oops.
But it just kind of reminded me too of like Amber, like I'm on Amber too, like just the books that we're reading have these like, I feel like these breaking generational type of like conversations.
Yeah.
I feel like our generation and younger, it's kind of like realizing. So it's nice to like see that in books too, is like, you know, kind of telling your parent like they've had so much control on your life so far about like, you know, especially her dad, like, you know, being anticipating for like waiting, right? And that's like trickled into so many of her relationships, and just being able to tell them like, you know what, nope, I'm gonna call you when it's a good time for me. Like, I'm tired of waiting for you.
Yep.
And like I felt that like with like my relationship with my dad too, a little bit. So I kind of just, I really liked that piece in this book about that. So she gets this call from her dad during this like chaos of the beginning of the readathon that she's worked so hard for. And she's like, no, Dad. But her dad, during this call, we already kind of said it already, but he tells her that Miles actually drove up to Mackinac to confront him for all of the shit that he put Daphne through. And the reason why he didn't come home that night is because he missed the ferry. So for you non-Michiganders too, Mackinac Island is so cool, but there's no cars. So you have to take like a ferry over there, and you like bike ride around the island or take like a carriage ride. So if you miss the ferry that night, like you're stuck on the island. And there's stuff on the island. Like it's not like...
it's like a very well built up like area.
But so Miles missed the last ferry, so he was stuck on Mackinac Island. That's why he didn't come home that night. So he wasn't like with Petra that night, and that's where like, you know, Daphne was spiraling that day because of Peter, right? But I'm like, Miles, why don't you just say something? Like, just tell her. But so that's that conversation there. And so Ashley saves the day with these volunteers.
And Miles is included in the volunteers. And Miles bakes brownies, and in general, they just kind of like avoid each other, but make like, you know, eye contact from across the way. As everything is wrapping up, she heads over to Miles, and she's like, are you up for a walk, basically? Ashley shoots her out too. She's like, bro, it is over. It's done. The kids are dead. Like, let's go take care of your shit. I got this. You're fine. And they start talking. They have these moments of like, I understand why you did what you did, and I understand why you did what you did. And he's like, oh, well, I'm, you know, happy for you and Peter, because she tells him about Peter. And she's like, what? No. And Miles is like, oh, well, I told Petra about us. And she's like, you told Petra we're sleeping together? And he's like, no, dumbass, that I love you. They just have like these very sweet moments together. And Miles goes on this like absolute just rampant tirade about how much he loves her and all of the things that she does. And she's like, Miles, like, hello, like, let me show you something. And she walks him to this house that she had passed so many times that was up for sale. You know, she just told him, like, when I moved here, like, this is what I pictured for my life. I wanted this cute little house and all of these things. And now she's saying that she fell in love with the place, not just Miles. She fell in love with the people there, the energy of the town and all of this stuff. And, you know, she does say, like, you mean the world to me. You mean so much to me, but you can't be everything to me. So I do love it here. You're a huge part of why I love it here. She tells him, like, hey, I want to be with you. I love you, but I need my own place. I need my time, you know, my space to grow, and we can be together like a normal couple, and then we'll figure it out from there. It's just so precious. And, you know, basically like asks if they can kick Julia out for a while until she finds an apartment, and they kick Julia out to go stay with Ashley. because the apartment is, again, very tiny. And they end up together. And then we get, so this is not technically an epilogue, like it's not listed as an epilogue, it's listed as a chapter, but let's call it what it is. It's an epilogue because it is Friday, October 3rd, and on October 3rd he asked me what day it is, and it's 412 days since I stayed.
Which I thought it was cute.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was a cute way of doing it.
I agree.
And we already kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier because I had to kind of go off on it.
Yep.
So it's like over a year later.
Yep.
Right? Just a little over a year. And we find out that Miles and Daphne bought a house together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not the little green cottage, you know, that she pointed out, but it is a similar layout, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done with it. Mm-hmm. Kind of gives them like something to do and something to work for. And so they have a little housewarming party, but she does talk about how she like reconnected with her friend that like Peter's best friend married. Mm-hmm. She like reconnects with them and she just realizes like it's a lot more complicated, right, than she originally thought. She thought it was like her friend was choosing Peter over her.
Yes.
But in reality it's like choosing the love of your life and your best friend.
Correct.
So not like Peter wasn't really a factor, but like her friend's husband grew up with Peter, so it's like, you know, it's a weird dynamic there with it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they were able to reconnect too, and
me too,
just kind of give her those friends and just that piece too.
Yeah. But they have their little housewarming party. They have, you know, the talk of the town come over. Harvey, one thing that I did not mention, and I don't know how I forgot this, but my man Harvey, I feel like we'd be BFFs at poker night. I don't know what I'm doing, but he wears decked out head to toe in Red Wings gear all the time. And oh my God, Harvey is after my own heart. If y'all don't know, die-hard Red Wings fan, grew up as a hockey fan. This season shattered me into a million fucking pieces at the tragic ending, but the Capitals are fucking out because they got swept by the Rangers like they deserve. And now I'm just, you know, ranting, but, you know, Harvey's there, Barb's there, Lenore's there. It's all very, very sweet. And it kind of ends in a way that I just love, because at the beginning of the book, we see Daphne telling the funny story of how they met through the POV of Peter telling it, because Peter loved to tell a story. Peter was the natural storyteller in their relationship. Peter was the one who was the talk of the town, the life of the party. Peter was the one who could tell it the best because Daphne just, you know, let it go to him. And so Miles started, you know, when they asked like, oh, tell us the story about how you met. Because, you know, Daphne's mom is there, and it's so sweet. And Miles goes, funny story, and then passes it off to Daphne because he knows how much she loves to tell their, you know, meet cute.
Yes. So I will say, even though I didn't I had a hard time believing it, I like how she ended it.
Yes.
It wasn't like 4 years in the future they're married with a kid or something.
Yes.
You know, it was like
just
a year. And like you asked if I would have felt better if they didn't like buy a house together in the year, but this house feels very new. It's not like, to me, they didn't
move in right away. Totally.
Like, they did give themselves time.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Ryan and I moved in 7 months into our relationship, I think. So it's not like, no, maybe it was 9 months. But, you know, I'm not saying like that like was a rush, but I think I liked how she wrapped it up, and that's what made me still feel good about the book.
Yes.
Is how it ended, was just kind of like, hey, we bought a house together. Like, that's our next step. Like, we are still taking things the way we want them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So that was a funny story.
Funny story. It really was just so sweet, so cute. Yeah. I genuinely enjoyed the reading experience. I absolutely like this one way more than Happy Place, I will say. Happy Place, I know, is some people's number one. People absolutely love it. But man, you want to talk about a relationship that I was like, the conflict makes no fucking sense.
I need to just read it.
I think
I need to read finish out my Emily Henry.
That's what I'm gonna pick up. People, it's literally on my shelf right behind me. People would meet on vacation, so I'm definitely gonna read it. I feel like that might be my first like pool read, like my first summer read. You know,
there you go.
But
it's gonna be fun. But let's talk about our songs, because we both picked midnight songs.
We sure did. So I picked, actually, I think this is one of Hannah's favorite songs. At least she drafted it during our Patreon song drafting. So I picked Snow on the Beach featuring more Lana Del Rey from Midnights. Obviously, I had to pick the more Lana version. And the reason that I picked this was it is really just about like how something like shouldn't be there, but it is, and it's just beautiful the way that it is. And I think that Miles and Daphne really were at the root of it all, like an opposites attract sort of thing. Like they weren't supposed to work together. She wasn't supposed to fall for the scruffy, quote unquote, drug dealing,
croc wearing
man who works at a winery. But the song starts out by saying, one night a few moons ago, I saw flecks of what could have been lights, but it might just have been you passing by unbeknownst to me. And I think that was because this does take place over the course of a few months. And they, like, she had been living with Miles for a little bit when it had started. So I feel like that is kind of, her maybe having those first realizations that like, oh, maybe he isn't like this terrible person that Peter painted him out to be. And the next line is, life is emotionally abusive and time can't stop me quite like you did. So obviously the allusion to both of them being left by their respective partners and then ending up, as each other's source of comfort. Basically, and my flight was awful. Thanks for asking. I'm unglued. Thanks to you. Just, this journey that I'm on is not great. It's pretty awful. And I'm coming apart at the seams even more because of you, because I don't know what to do with you. I have these weird feelings. And the chorus it does repeat itself a little bit, but it's like snow at the beach, weird but fucking beautiful. Flying in a dream, stars by the pocketful. You wanting me tonight feels impossible, but it's coming down, no sound. It's all around, like snow on the beach. And I think it's them realizing like this initial, like maybe spark of attraction might be something a little bit more. And it doesn't really make sense. Like, what are the odds that two people that get broken up with by the opposite two people end up together? Like, I think that was, seeing snow on the beach. It's weird, but like the relationship was fucking beautiful. Like, I don't know. It's, you get what I'm saying. You understand.
I understand.
Also, too, I picked this because of the reference to beaches a lot. And I know it's snow on the beach, but specifically, they spent so much time admiring a Michigan summer on Michigan beaches that it felt very appropriate. And this particular verse is kind of what got me. And it's, this scene feels like what I once saw on a screen. I searched Aurora Borealis screen. I've never seen someone lit from within, blurring out my periphery. And I think this is the perfect description of Miles, because she sees him as just someone who lights up a room, who can talk to anyone. He's admired by so many people, and she's never witnessed that because she herself, I think that's probably one of her biggest insecurities, is how she is like perceived by people in those first kind of moments. She can't make conversation. She feels very awkward. My smile is like I won a contest, and to hide that would be so dishonest. And that's her just kind of allowing herself to enjoy the moment fully and not keep those boundaries up, those hard lines that she had. And then it said, and it's fine to fake it till you make it, till you do, till it's true. And this is the, the faking it part of their relationship. And like we said, they didn't really fake date so much as they did like fake date when it was convenient. But I think that this doesn't, like, we're going to fake it till we make it, like we will make it through. But then faking it actually became true on the back end. And then goes back into the chorus. And the chorus, or the bridge is, I can't speak, afraid to jinx it. I don't even dare to wish it. And this is just Daphne being like, this is not, no, like this can't work. This is way too good to be true. But then it goes into, but your eyes are flying saucers from another planet. Now I'm all for you like Janet. Can this be a real thing? Can it? Like, maybe this is like, I know you feel too good to be true, and I know this feels very like out of left field, but maybe this could be a real thing. And it ends with another round of the chorus, the are we falling like snow at the beach, weird but fucking beautiful, flying in a dream, stars by the pocketful. Yeah, I just felt like it was, I don't know, I could almost, like, if this was set in winter, it would be better. But I feel like I could see them like sitting on a beach together, like curled up with this song kind of like subtly playing in the background. I love also too that we always end up referring to like the songs that we feel like could be set in like the movie version of this. But I know Emily Henry is slated to have 3 of her books turned into movies, and I could see this one being picked up as a movie. I feel like this would be an immediate rom-com like hit.
Yeah, and I think I would believe it if I saw it.
True. Very true. But yeah, that's why I chose Snow on the Beach. I would listen to a ton of, I had so many songs. Like, let's just list a few for fun. I had Long Story Short. That was one that I almost chose. I had But Daddy, I Love Him from Torture Poets Department. I had High School from Torture Poets Department. I had the other one that I was very strongly considering was Call It What You Want. I had too many songs this time around. And then
I
You Were in Love.
Clicked with this one.
Yeah.
I couldn't pick another one.
But yeah.
So I picked You're on Your Own, Kid. And I mean, I joke that it's my least favorite. It's only because like I feel like it's overhyped. And I feel like she's played it so much on the Eras tour that I'm just like
just add it to the set list, baby girl.
Yeah, like if you like it that much, just do that. But it instantly clicked for me because I think it's like Daphne's song, because I'm gonna kind of skip around in the song, but
yeah,
like the chorus, you know, it's like from sprinkler splashes to fireplace ashes, I waited ages to see you there. I searched the party of better bodies, just learned that you never cared. And it just kind of made me feel like with Daphne, right? Like, you know, she from a young age to now, like she just waited for so long, like she just never really like had that moment. You know, she always was waiting, and she always felt like she wasn't good enough. Like kind of what you said about your song as well, like she would just search for, you know, who was better than her, right, and different things, and like comparing herself to Petra and comparing herself all the time, really just to learn that you never cared. It's kind of double fold for me, like one for like Miles, like he liked her, like he didn't care about other people, like you know that, and like you never cared, like to her dad too, like her dad didn't really care that he didn't like that, you know, she saw him and that like scared him, and like he didn't care about that either. Just a few highlights, like it's like, I wait patiently, he's gonna notice me, it's okay, we're the best of friends, kind of just like, you know, that anticipation with Miles, right, a little bit there. And in the second verse, it's like, I didn't choose this town, I dream of getting out, there's just one that can make me stay. And so like originally, right, that was Peter, right, like she didn't choose this town, like Peter would have made her stay, but then they broke up, and so she was counting down the days of you know, dreaming of getting out. And then the one that could make her stay was Miles, but really it's ultimately her making that decision for herself. With that, the name of the song, You're on Your Own, Kid, you always have been, I think it just kind of gave that realization to her that like she does have that power inside of her to make her own choices, kind of like telling herself that, right, like you've always been on your own, like but you can do this. So I think just kind of giving her that independence there.
Totally.
Then the bridge, right, because there were pages turned with the bridges burned, everything you lose is a step you take, so make the friendship bracelets, take the moment and taste it, you've got no reason to be afraid. You know, I think that just kind of sums up like how Daphne kind of sees her situation, her friends and everything as the time goes on, where she decides to stay in the small town. Like she makes the friendships with Julia and Ashley and like rekindles her old friendships, and just to not be afraid and just to kind of do what she thinks. So totally. I definitely like that song was very much a Daphne song for me all around.
I love that. So good. All right. Are we ready to talk about our book ratings?
Yes.
This is going to be interesting. So like I said, in the middle of it, I feel like there was definitely something missing for me. I actually don't think I've rated any Emily Henry books 5 stars. Well, we have our own rating system. We rate into the moon and to Saturn. And I don't think that I've rated an Emily Henry book anything like above a 4.5. I actually, no, when we did our Patreon rewind, I'm pretty sure I said I would give Book Lovers a 5 upon reflection.
I think you did, yeah.
But initially I didn't. And I have really been back and forth about where I want to land with this book. And ultimately, I think that I enjoyed the reading experience so much. Like, it was truly just a joyous, way to read. And even though it wasn't perfect to me and it was not quite a 5, I feel like I'm just going to land on a solid 4 moons. I feel like that's a good middle of the road. It was definitely missing a little something for me, but I would still absolutely recommend people read this book. I genuinely enjoyed it. I really liked it, even though it wasn't quite what I was expecting.
Yeah, I think I wanted this to be a 5-star so bad, and I think I let myself down with that.
For sure.
A lot.
Yeah.
And that's my own. Yeah, I had really high hopes for this book, like super high, and especially reading it at first, like Daphne, love the name Daphne, her chai tea, librarian, like Miles wearing yellow Crocs, my husband wears yellow Crocs. I knew that from like the cover. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. So I really, really wanted this to be a 5 stars.
Yeah.
I have to give it 3.5 Saturns.
I figured that's where you're gonna land.
So close, but like book lovers, Beach Read are 4.5 Saturns for me.
Yeah.
So I knew this one like is not in that orbit. So
totally. Yeah.
3.5 is where I land, but I definitely enjoyed reading it.
For sure.
I really liked it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's fun. It just was, definitely missing a few little things for me, but no, still enjoyed it. But that was Funny Story, everyone.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us on this journey. And we have another book to talk about because, we're still moving on with this podcast here. And so our next book, we ended up doing this unintentional romance thriller situation. So we are taking you out of romance, throwing you back into a thriller. And we're going to be reading and reviewing a very wild, insane journey of a book. It is. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we did record this episode before this one,
just
as a spoiler, and I will tell you, we are very chaotic in it, and I love it. But I would definitely recommend listening to this book or reading it before listening to our episode, because when we talk about gossiping and jumping around, we do that. So just
it was
prepare yourselves.
So chaotic.
It was so fun.
We were waiting for Funny Story to release. We had time. We needed to record. Yep. And so we chose Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. And this was available on Book of the Month. This was available as a audiobook on, I think it was on Spotify or Everand. One of the two. Let me verify. Hold, please. Did I listen to it on Everand? I think I might have.
But it's we didn't do this on the podcast last season, but we both read it. None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. That was really good. And that one, it just reminds me of it because that one had like a podcast intertwined to it.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to listen to those. I think otherwise than like reading like the script of the podcast.
Totally.
So that's what I thought was fun about this book, is listening to like the podcast chapters as if it was like a real podcast.
Yes, and it is on Everand. So if you guys don't know, we are unfortunately not yet sponsored. Everand, hi. It's nice to see you. But it is Everand. It's a subset of Scribd. It used to just be called Scribd, and it is a flat rate fee. It's, I think, $12.99 or something like that per month. And it is unlimited access to the audiobooks they have available on their app. And there are a lot of Seven Husbands is on there. Some of the ACOTAR books are on there. A lot of Lucinda Berry, a lot of Frida McFadden. Listen for the Lie was on there. There's a lot of really, really good books. So if you're interested in something that's not where you have to buy credits, like an Audible or like a, Lib, something like that, or if you don't have a library card or anything like that.
You don't want to wait like for like Libby and on your holds and everything.
Exactly.
If you need something instantly. Yeah, it's nice.
I would definitely check out Everand. It doesn't have like the largest catalog, but there's definitely enough for me to justify having it and using it regularly.
Definitely. So yeah, we are so excited to jump back into a thriller.
Yes.
We'll give you guys a little break after this before maybe jumping back into a romance-ish book, but it's a little different.
Just a little bit.
So yes, join us for our next episode. But in the meantime, follow us on social media, TikTok, Instagram. Please interact, like, share, all of that. Rate, review the podcast. We have a Patreon, which we try to give you some fun content with that as well. Yeah, just super excited for the rest of the season here.
Yeah.
We got some good books that are coming up, and we appreciate you listening.
Thank you all so much. We will see you in 2 weeks where we read and review Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera.
Keep reading with kindness.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.